And we are live. Just adjusting my mic. I really need to look at my mic settings because after that live show last night, my mic is not as sensitive as it should be. Anyway, thanks everybody for dropping by. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be in this fine world. Bronze Dragon coming at you. It's been a busy week. Lots of games going on. Lots of stuff in Splinterlands, Immortal Creed, a lot of stuff going on. And if you didn't catch it, I posted a video of my live. Well, it was Dwayne's live stream, and he invited me on last night, and we did a Friday night live stream. And I posted the full live stream. It is long, it is 2 hours, but I think we kept the discussion lively, and I think there was a lot of topics covered. So it's worth a listen if you have some multitasking time and you want to listen to something. And he posted a portion of it on his website last night as well too. So I think it went pretty well, and thanks go out to Dwayne for inviting me on. I think. I think part of why I like to do this discussion on Saturday is because a lot of us, I feel, we have family and stuff around us that aren't necessarily interested in Web3 gaming, and that's a topic that that I'm going to explore going in the future on future episodes. But like my wife, my daughter, they humor me and they talk to me about it, but they're not primarily interested in a lot. So I think it's really cool to sit down, and it's I guess in any case, it's interesting to sit down with people that actually are interested in things, whatever it may be, whatever hobby you may have, because I'm in several other hobbies. I like collecting guns. I like collecting. I'm a photographer as well. I'm also a home brewer, so I have a lot of different interests. And when you get into a circle of people that talk about and are interested into the things that you're interested in, it's a lively discussion, right? So it was he and I have different thought processes. He's much more invested. Not that I'm not invested into Splinterlands, but he's a lot more invested into Splinterlands, and he has a different take on it. He plays in the upper levels, whereas I play in gold and silver. So we have two different takes on it, and I think you can see that in the show from the different discussion points. But it's all valid, and like I said, why I like these meetings is because we get a bunch of different takes on matters that are going on. So yeah, you caught me. I was just trying to get in a few battles in my Immortal Creed. Okay, let's catch up with some beginning chat here. KGM Jams in the house. Thanks for dropping by. Says, love the video with Dwayne. Yeah, I think it turned out well, except for my audio quality. And I have to remember that whenever I do that, this kind of interview type thing, I have to put on my headphones. And I forgot to select the microphone input, and what ended up happening was the audio ended up going through my microphone on my headphones versus my main microphone, which is not that I don't have good headphones. They're a pretty good set of Sony headphones, but the microphone doesn't sound as good as my main microphone. So I started listening back to it after the show, and I'm like, oh man, it sounds like I'm in a tin can or something. But anyway, it was a good interview, and I think it went well. Keys in the house. Thanks for dropping by. Norvin Makia, Immortal Creed to the moon. Let's talk about Junius. That immortal is him. Interesting. I have not had great luck with him. But like I mentioned on the show last night with Dwayne, the problem that I'm having is in Immortal Creed, I can see a use for most of the immortals, and I don't really want to burn them. I don't really want to burn any of them. But with that said, I can say that there are some that are seem to be a little bit stronger than others as well. So let's see here. Not Splinterlands. Well, we're talking about Splinterlands, but I was just whenever I turned on the game or turned on the camera, I happened to be playing a Immortal Creed match. So that's why we kicked it off that way. Gathering says, good morning. Catching up listening to your talk with Dwayne. Good conversation. Yeah, I think it went pretty well. Ike says, Want more videos like the land one you made this week. You think you understand it, them after your video felt I had made another review of where I am. Yeah, I think I was discussing this a little bit with Dwayne last night, and I think my take on it is a little bit different than others, but I think my whole point in making these videos is that I like to, I think all us creators like to pick out topics that maybe they're unique to us, good ideas we've had, but also I think my main takeaway is here trying to help other people prepare for what's coming down the pike, right? So leading up to 1.5, I did a whole series of videos based around what the white paper was saying at this point and trying to prepare people so you could get your land in order. So if you wanted to, be quote unquote self-sufficient with enough grain and everything. And I hope that helped a lot of people. I had a lot of good comments. It helped me because at the same time, I'm working through this as well. In most cases, I don't know, there are a lot of people, we pointed out the numbers last night, but there are a lot of people that have less land than I do. In fact, most people in the land game have less land than what I do at 12 plots. But those people on the higher end, like we looked at the numbers last night, and there are a lot of people that have 1,000 or more plots. So they're looking at things a lot differently than I am. But I think as we go along and the development of land has come along, there have been a lot more things put into place. And as far as costs, realized costs that will come about, okay? And I just try, while I'm not the best with numbers, I kind of want to get across the standpoint that, first of all, you need to do your own homework. You need to do your own numbers, right? But there are a lot of things that you potentially could overlook if you're just skimming through the white paper pieces, right? And some of those things you overlook may end up costing you a lot of money. So I just kind of, first of all, I want to get myself prepared. Supreme Victory Studios is in the house. Welcome aboard. Thanks for dropping by. Yeah, so I'm first of all, I want to be prepared, right? I'm the last guy that wants to be left holding the bag when things drop. And as soon as things go live, if you're not prepared, then you're behind the game, okay? Because if things go live and changes go into action and you're not prepared, then things are going to cost more. That's what it comes down to. Cards are going to cost more, DEC, SPS, whatever's involved in the change we're talking about is going to cost more, okay? Because as things go live, things are popular, things are pumping along, and it just costs you more. If you can get prepared pre that pump, then it's better on your pocketbook, right? Or better on my pocketbook in my case. Now, in my case, I probably spent too much money this week, but I had a video, that video we were talking about, and it was kind of the extrapolation of what Gathering and Dwayne were talking about the week before. And we've been talking about this off and on since 1.5 went live, right? The whole idea of quote unquote being self-sufficient. And Dwayne brought up a good point last night. His definition of being self-sufficient is different than what my definition is, okay? So, and I can see it from both standpoints, right? So, I think from a big picture point of view, the game was developed, and we've talked about this before, especially, they've talked about this on the town halls and such. The game was developed to have an interplay and not to have people be self-sufficient. Will there be people on the high end be self-sufficient? Certainly. I mean, if you've got a couple hundred plots of land, yeah, you can be self-sufficient and do whatever you want. But I also pointed out the fact that as you go up in numbers, as far as plots, it gets increasingly, and it extrapolates out, it gets increasingly harder to be able to feed your workers efficiently. And those people on the high end are really going to depend upon the magical foods, okay? Because I think I've proven that, and they've said that the grain, going at it from the grain aspect, is going to be inefficient. Now, also falling back onto the whole point about only 20% of the lands being active currently and staked out, that's a huge amount of plots of land that are just sitting there and not necessarily doing anything, but they're not going to, hopefully, will be, I'm hoping that we're above the 40% once Land 2.0 goes live. Because you've got to understand, and it's really hard for me to wrap my mind around it because there's so many different variables at play here. But there's going to be 30 different buildings. There's going to be 50 different resources, right? And if you don't have enough lands up and running and producing those resources, if your overall goal is to go ahead and produce the spell cards and the item cards that come about as of Land 2.0, when Land 3.0 hits, right? Or whatever they're going to call it, it's going to make it increasingly harder to get the materials you need, and it's going to be increasingly more expensive to do that. And that all kind of trickles down on the whole talking point about food, you know, because we've proven that if you even just, I wish I had the page open, but the page in the white paper that discusses the magical foods, let me take a minute and go over here. Not, you know, let's not jump back on that, but we can talk about what everybody wants to talk about and rehash what I put in the video. But going and doing the magical foods, I think I calculated out you would need at least a dozen plots, right? Because there's so many different things you have to make that actually go into those foods and produce everything that goes into them. That and you know, a lot of people point out maybe I don't want to do that. You know, Dwayne's point was his definition of sufficiency is not necessarily producing enough food for feeding all his workers. His definition could be I'm producing enough of something else, enough iron bars, enough wood, or whatever else you're making to actually trade for and pay for food to feed your workers. So that's a different, and I never really thought about it that way, but I think it's a very valid way to look at it. So you don't necessarily have to go deep on food, although I would make an argument that I agree that the magical foods are going to be a high priority. And I would hazard a guess that if you went in on making magical foods, even if you didn't go in self-sufficient and you had to buy the crystals and things to make the food, that there's going to be a strong demand for them, especially from people that have high amounts of plots, because they're going to need that magical food. It's going to be inherent in feeding huge amounts of characters, right? So Ike says, Matt said even Matt Clark with 2 regions won't be able to do it all, and it's as it should be. You can just buy enough land to make timber and to feed your crew. There will be demand for wood. Yeah, oh, definitely. There will be a lot of demand for wood. If you look at the wood tree, you know, I want to take a minute and I want to go ahead and see if I can pull that up. Sorry for the delay. I'm just checking. I want to get a graphic up here so when we're talking about it, we can have something to look at. Oh, just trying to find it. If anybody has the URL to the white paper, please drop it in the chat. Come on, why can I not find this? Yeah, let's go back to chat. Sorry, I couldn't find it. If anybody comes up with that white paper, I don't want to look at it for too much longer. Just drop it in chat. Thanks. Let's see here. Supreme says high saturated foods will be the key, I think. Yeah, and obviously they've talked about this before. They devised the game for that. But once again, if you go, I was looking at that, and if you go into producing foods, you're going to have to be buying all those different types of crystals, which are, or the items from that is produced from magical lands, and then produce the different types of magical foods. So it should be interesting, although I do think that it's going to come down to using those magical foods. Magical food will be hoarded by the few that can craft it. It will be much more expensive than basic grain, so even if it is for sale, many won't buy it because of the cost. That's an interesting take on it. I do agree that the price will be higher, a lot higher, so they will have to balance it out so that the efficiency is worth it. But once again, that goes back to my talking point about the amount of lands that are actually active. Because what we need is we need a higher percentage of the lands to come on. But, you know, Dwayne had a good point last night, is that if the lower the amount of lands that are active, the higher the prices will be on the market. So the more you stand to make. However, the more you stand to pay for parts and materials to go into whatever you're going to make, right? So it's just basic business. Whatever costs you absorb to make something will have to be passed along to your customer, right? Alex says magic food. Yes, there will be magical food, which is produced from a mill, which is a second level production building. And it will take a number of things to actually produce the food: grain, wood, and then I forget the magical crystals, whatever they're called, of each type, which are produced from the different magical resources. Gathering says you need grain plus essences plus splinter specific magical resources. You also need wood. Wood is also in there too. So back to the point of there being a high demand for wood, I agree with that as well, which is time consuming and have to consider maintenance costs. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it all comes out in business. It's basic business, right? If you absorb a cost, you have to pass it along plus add a percentage for your profit. So if these materials I'm buying to make magical food are at a high price, then the magical food is going to be high. And also basic business laws apply. If there are more people that focus on making food and there are more magic food on the market, then the prices will go down, right? So just basic business. But once again, if there aren't too many people actually kitted out to make this stuff, then there will be a very small amount on the market. Because think about it. So if I'm producing magic food, the first thing I want to do is feed my people, right? And then anything extra will be over and above, and I can go ahead and sell it, right? So got to be cheaper than buying it. I don't know. It depends. You know, this whole thing was laid out so that there would be interplay, just very much like any other resource production type game you've played in the past. This interplay between everybody. You know, there's some people going to be making food and growing food. There's going to be some people growing wood and making boards and ore and metal bars and all this, you know. And for this whole thing to actually work well, there needs to be people doing a little bit of everything, right? So if we have people just focusing on food, then other things are going to be extremely expensive, because to make the magical food, I will have to buy wood. So there'll have to be somebody making wood so I can buy it off of it. If there's very few people growing wood, then the wood cost is going to be high, which the magical food cost will go up proportionally, right? So are people sleeping on wood production? Wood needed for all refining? Yeah. I mean, once again, once you start looking at that diagram more closely, wood is needed for several things. So I would argue that wood is a very good investment as well as far as what to do, because you could, in your argument about using just grain, you could just use grain to feed and, grow lumber and then make boards. And then you would have an automatic built-in audience or set of consumers for your wood, because back to my previous argument was, if I'm making magical food, I got to buy wood off somebody, right? It also goes into a couple other things as well. So, but I think it was devised well to force this interplay between everybody, whether you're buying and selling or using the liquidity pools to buy and sell, whatever. So I got a mountain in Gankland. There are only like 5 plots of mountains, so I should make some good trades. Yeah, but that also goes back to the liquidity pools are going to be continent wide. Okay. So one of the things that I started, whenever I was digging in down that deep rabbit hole of that video I went into this week, one of the things I considered was, or they considered, was making liquidity pools just for each region, which is this huge project. And I agree that from that standpoint, it was way too complicated to do that. But one of the takeaways from that is the fact that each region is not laid out like the next region. And your point on mountains is the same point as in foods. There are some regions, and I took a random summary of several regions. There's some regions that have less than 10% of the actual plots available that could actually produce food. Same thing in that region you're in as far as mountains. But the pools are going to stretch across the continent. So I don't know if you're going to make extra money off your iron bars, because everything averages out, right? So, but, there's more to be seen. We'll see. The magic food will have to be so good to not want to use grain. It will be. And, well, I don't want to sound too enthusiastic, but it will have to be. I'll say that. Because, like Gathering was saying, the cost will be up there. And like I implied in my video as well, and I tried to demonstrate, the cost of all these particular items, whether you try to do it yourself or whether you buy it off somebody else or buy it off the market or what have you, the cost will be up there. So that food will have to be really efficient at what it's doing, right? And that's beside the whole thought process that I haven't quite been able to wrap my head around, is that what if we have multiple people, high-end people with lots of plots, just being self-sufficient with grain, which is, by the developer's definition, an inefficient way to feed your workers. That takes a ton of grain off the market, okay? And the other grain that is on the market gets a much higher price. So, just looking at it, if you go in and say, for instance, on our previous argument, go in to produce wood and you're not producing food, you're relying upon buying food, magic food, or grain off the market, then that's going to ultimately go way up in price as well. So what's going to happen? Your wood's going to have to go up in price. And it kind of gets in this loop, because if the grain goes up in price, your wood goes up in price, and then the guy making magic food buying your wood is paying more for your wood, and so the magic food goes up in price. See what I mean? Now, from a point of view of a person running a business, you like making extra profit, but is that really profit if you're having to put that profit into buying everybody else's materials? I think my main point is that I think we're going to have more people come online with their land to get this up and running efficiently. And I'm not saying things should be cheap. I want to make a little bit of money here and there too as well. But I would like to see the whole system get up and get rolling along. And for that to happen, I'm ultimately thinking that we need more than 20% of the land online, right? So let me take a drink here. I'm getting on a roll, getting off on a tangent here. How's everybody doing today? Jason Jenkins is in the house. Thanks for dropping by. Appreciate it. Let's see here. Catch up with a little bit of chat. Also, when you level buildings, can't see them cutting it then. Grain cutting it then. Yeah. Because ultimately, that's another topic we've been talking about this week, and one I pointed out in my video. And the cost of buildings is going to be pretty great, especially for people who have multiple plots, right? I think I demonstrated that, and it was just a guess on what the prices are, because we don't know what the prices are going to be, whether they're going to be linear. Say they like the idea, they like the 10,000 DEC thing. Is it going to be 10,000 per level? Is it going to go up like 10,000 for the first level, 20,000 for the second level, 30,000 for the third level? And ultimately that would get very expensive for a 10th level building, right? But in the white paper, they also note that there would be materials in each level as well. So for that first level, you're not just paying 10,000 DEC or whatever the figure is going to be, right? You're also going to pay some stone, some wood, some iron, whatever the material cost is. Now, I'll go you one better. After that, at the end of every month or the beginning of every month, you're also going to have to pay your material upkeep, your maintenance cost, right? Which, by their definition, is a small percentage of whatever level you have. So for instance, I used 5%, right? Because to me, that's a small percentage, right? So for instance, if you have a first level building and it costs you 10,000 DEC to bring it up to first level, and that small percentage, it's going to, along with the materials, it's going to add up, especially after you get 10, 15, 20 buildings. And that, I'm sorry, I'm getting off on a roll here, and you have to figure the salt effect on this, okay? So you've got all these costs that you're going to have to incur to keep your business going. And that was a good point that Dwayne made, is that this is actually really the definition of a real business, okay? And then we got off on some tax tangents and jokes and stuff. But if you can theoretically make money doing this, then it's a real business, right? So, but anyway, back to the salt effect. After you consider all those costs, the salt is going to add another tax and effect on everything you're making, right? So you're going to have to input to the regional balance to keep that salt level down, to be able to be making, what you want to make. Now, is that going to average out? I'm sure over time people will find to average out. Well, we need to get our salinity rate to this to be able to make this. It's not worth going above this. There's a certain level to which there is diminishing returns. I'm sure there's a point for that, right? But I'm just trying to get across that there are going to be all these different costs to think about. And especially for people who have large amounts of land. I mean, there was 100 people or more that have 1,000 plots or more. Imagine that. And for me, on a small guy standpoint, that's really hard to imagine. Now, as we discussed, I'm sure a lot of those are just holding the land for investment purposes, for down the road. They bought the land, these large chunks. We're talking hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of land, right? And they're just waiting down the road for the land to double or triple in price, and then they're just going to sell the land off. But that also demonstrates these large chunks of land that are just going to sit there doing nothing, okay? Now, am I against that? Hey, it's part of the land game. It's investment 101, right? Buy low, sell high. I agree with that. But it's going to affect us all who are trying to play the active land game, right? So, birds, bees, and trees in the morning. Good morning in-house. Thanks for dropping by. I appreciate it. Let's see here. Catch up with chat. I'm thinking magic food will be 2 times regular grain, so workers will eat a quarter and what they produce, not a half. Well, it'll be interesting. I would float the idea to you that I think it will have to be more than double the regular grain, right? Due to all the prices that are going to be entailed in actually making it. I think there's no hard numbers on this, but looking at what's going to be in actually running a mill and making this food, I would say it at least has to be 5 times, at least, I'm thinking. So, but we'll see. Jason says, it looks clear from the complexity that it's not set up for a person to be able to do all the processes. I agree. Maybe it will work best sticking to one thing, jack of all trades, master of none. Yeah, I mean, that goes back to Dwayne's different definition of self-sufficiency. I think we all agree that the game was built so one person, unless you have a huge amount of plots, was not meant to be self-sufficient, really. Okay. Could you make the argument that, yeah, hey, I own one plot, I grow grain, I eat half of it and I sell the other half of it. I'm self-sufficient. Yeah, you can make that argument. But I think I also showed that in my video this last week, once you start going up 2, 3, 4, 5 plots, it gets increasingly hard to do that, right? So, and I'm not arguing for it. I'm just talking, that's just a thought process, and it's kind of the evolution, in my mind, the evolution of what Gathering and Dwayne were talking about the week before, and Gathering's been talking about for quite some time, right? And I'm not arguing against it. I'm just trying to think out how that's going to affect. If you want to buy enough grain producing lands to feed all your characters, more power to you. Hey, there's so many different ways to play this land game that it's all out there. I'm just trying to think forward about how it's going to affect the game overall, right? So, but I do agree. But like I said to my previous point, is we're going to have people doing everything. If you've got a lot of plots and you've got mountains and a lot of ores, then you're the guy to make some iron bars and buy, sell, trade your iron bars on the market for some grain to feed your food, or magical foods to feed your characters, right? If you've got a lot of forests or swamps, you'll be making lumber. And I think we proved that there's going to be the need and the interplay of all that in the ecosystem. But also, it's also demonstrating, I don't want to say work, but it's an extra task every so often. You would have to buy enough. And I guess it just depends upon how often you want to collect your resources, right? Because you would have to be ready to pay your grain at that point in time. So I think also that when 2.0 goes live, I think people will stop this whole claiming once an hour or once, I would argue that even once a day is a whole lot compared, because you'll, especially like in the argument of where, say you're producing wood, you don't have any grain producing lands, you're going to have to make sure you have sold some wood and bought your grain or your magical food so you can do that claim and have enough food to pay your characters to get your full claim, right? So it's going to be a little bit more process. It's going to be a little bit more on your daily plate, so to speak. And the more plots you have, the more time that's going to fill up. So I think these people that actually have a large amount of land plots that are active are going to find that on a probably every few days basis or a week basis, they're going to have a couple hours of work to do, so to speak. So. Ike says, that's as it should be. Jason keeps the markets balanced. Yes, like I said, it's going to take everybody producing every different little thing to make this game work like they laid it out. I think maybe the argument could be made that maybe it's too in-depth and a little bit too detailed. I don't know at this point. Like I said, I do think, though, that it's going to take a higher percentage than 20% of the lands to come online to make it work well. Hopefully, I'm hoping that maybe 40% is active by the time 2.0 goes live. My fingers crossed, So, Gathering agrees. Birds, Bees, and Trees says, are you getting a high chain node? I'm not familiar with that, and I have not invested in any nodes. So that would be a no. Paul Taylor's in the house. Thanks for dropping by. I appreciate your time. I think you were on with us and Dwayne last night, if I'm not incorrect. Ike says there will be a shop to buy from. Can't have bottlenecks. Yeah, once all the liquidity pools come online, the grain liquidity pool is first in line, and then the rest will. I think that logic would say once they get the bugs ironed out with the grain liquidity pool, then they'll use the same model for the rest of the liquidity pools. But seeing as grain is the only thing we can produce now, they won't really need to put the other liquidity pools online until 2.0 goes live. But I'm sure my thinking process would be they would get the grain one up and running, get everything ironed out. They would duplicate it for all the different other resources and bring those online when 2.0 comes live. And hopefully everything would be up and running and tested out and everything. And day one, day two, once everybody has had time to do a little bit of claiming and figuring out what they're doing with their land and everything, then we'll be able to buy, sell, trade. Bird says, high chain game nodes coming late February, early March using the Xi model. Okay, so Annie says, loved your moon carts video. Well, thank you very much. High Chain was a project called NFT World that had over 10 million players every month in Minecraft, and now they're building their own game. Cool. Sounds interesting. Just look at it for a minute. Here's their X. Interesting. Yeah, I don't have any information on that. I have to look at it. I'm all about new games. You know me. If it's really at this point, what I'm looking at is, I'm different than a lot of people. I'm looking for a game. What's exciting me about this present point in time is the fact that the Web3 games are getting better and better. And I think that's, whether you like kart races, and I'm not really into kart races, like I said, I'm more excited about the platform as a service model that they're presenting so other Web2 games can come on board and make more games into Web3 under Hive. And maybe they might be able to interface with other blockchains. I don't know. Going forward, but I'm excited about that. And it's not necessarily I'm into kart racing. I do like regular racing game like Forza. I'm a big Forza head. I love that. But I like the fact that the games are getting better. I think I'm at a critical game overload at this point. I've got so many games going on, and I was watching. I had a little time yesterday at lunchtime. Wasn't quite, really busy, and I caught a live stream from Tails yesterday, and he was looking at a game called Storm Warfare, and this is on a side chain of Ethereum, which I'm usually pretty much against, but since they've started devising these side chains on Ethereum, they've gotten a lot easier to use, because if you've ever used Ethereum, it's very expensive. Anyway, I'm a World War II buff, so I like the fact that this is a cool card game, and they've got graphics and audio and stuff like that. And currently right now they're running a tournament, a pre-release tournament, and you could win $10,000. You can log in. I don't make anything off this. I just thought it was cool. But the last thing I need is another game, right? So you can log in, you have access to the full deck of cards, and you can play. But if you're interested, it's stormwarfare.com. But just another game to play. But I think my whole point was that things are getting Web3 games are getting a lot better. and the competition is amping up. So Splinterlands is really going to have to amp up its game in my way of thinking. Plus, get on mobile. So, Ike says, wondering if, say, after a year, if the land isn't being worked, wonder if Splinterlands can force a buyback and then sell to active players. I don't know, because that would go against. That would really go against, the whole idea of being able to buy and hold assets, right? I don't think they can. Now, if they may be able to do that with, I don't know what percentage of plots are just not sold at this point and sitting. I don't know if you can even look at it. Let's see 150. So there's nothing sold in 150. Or nothing claimed, rather. So there's several regions that are not claimed yet. They possibly could do something with these regions that people just have not bought yet. I'm not sure how to look at that. We could go on the market, look at other items. You can look at, there is one region for sale, 3 tracks, and 47 plots for sale. They could possibly do something with something that nobody's just, they're sitting fallow. But I think about them forcing something would be very against what the game is about. Buying, holding, selling assets. And I think that would just create turmoil. I don't think they could do that. Birds, Bees, and Trees says, because Minecraft cracked down and said you can't buy these experiences in Web3 on Minecraft. So they're building their own game. Yeah, I've seen a few different games kind of along the Minecraft idea. I never really was one that got into the Minecraft. I tried it out a few times. It's just not my style. I can understand why some people would like it. But, we were talking last night, and I do think the evolution of gaming is Web3. I think that all it takes is a couple of the major gaming houses to get on, one major gaming house to get on board and prove that they have a something that works. In other words, a AAA game that is on a major blockchain and it works efficiently. I think all it's going to take is that, right? Because I think the evolution of the games, the Web3 games have gotten a lot better. Even over the last couple of years I've played, I still consider Splinterlands a very basic game. However, it has even gotten a lot better over time, right? But these games, especially with the new Arcade Colony platform, this service that's offering a possibility for houses, development houses that have a Web 2 game, okay, that is a very good Web 2 game. Think like wildly popular Plants vs. Zombies or something like that. Clash Royale or Clash of Clans or something like that, to be converted to a Web 3 game. I think it would be wildly popular. And once again, that goes back to the point of getting on mobile, because I think that would also bring in a large audience. Okay, so maybe slightly off topic, but I agree with you. So let's see here. Birds, Bees, and Trees says, I learned from Jesus Martinez's channel. Nice. I am not familiar with him or her. Gathering says, any new card buys or alphas? No new alphas. I cut off buying alphas whenever I got to the legendaries and they were way too expensive. However, with that said, yes, I bought cards. Okay, so my action this week is I bought that plot. I had to fill it up. So I bought 5 gold foil common max levels. Each one of those were $12, $13. And I kitted out that plot in one of the regions I'm in to have, once again, an extra grain producing plot. Believe it or not, I haven't bought actual play cards lately. A couple of weeks ago, I bought a couple gold foil. I bought a gold foil Kelia and a gold foil Obsidian. But look what I bought this morning. I bought a Lily Shield Paw. I've been wanting a Lily, and I just have come up with various reasons not to buy her, been putting money into other things. And after my discussion with Dwayne last night, he pointed out how he had such a high win rate with Lily. I just couldn't pass it up. I went on to the market this morning and found a good deal on a level 3, so I went ahead and bought her. So that is why I come back to saying that I probably spent too much money in Splinterlands this week. But those are my major actions. So I'm trying to think of what else. I haven't spent a lot of money otherwise in other games. I've been just going along in Splinter Forge, Golem Overlord, Rising Star, Immortal Creed. Yeah, I don't think I've spent a lot of money in those, but I do shift around coins and buy packs from time to time in various places. Also, I bought a little bit of SPS, and I also bought some GLX this week to get above that 10,000 level. I think I'm at like 12,000 or something or other to be able to get the match. So that could be considered something I've done this week as well. So let's see here. He's made a lot in nodes. I don't have any nodes either, says Birds. I love racing games. RC Pro-Am, never played that. I do remember it, but I never played it. I love Forza. I love the fact that, it's been a while since the Xbox 360 is the last console I bought. And it just frankly gathered dust because I'm a PC gamer. What I've really loved in the last several years is the fact that you can get Xbox and use it in Windows now. So I have my handy Xbox 360 controller, which is still being used to this day, and a little adapter, and I play Forza on my computer from time to time. So I love that functionality. Gathering says 11,617 unclaimed. So I think potentially they could do something with that. But once again, if the plot is bought, that's considered something that's owned by you, right? Now, we also, in the past, we've talked about this, a certain percentage of that, just think about it in life. You buy something, whether you forget about it or whether you die or get sick or whatever, there's going to be a certain percentage of that land that's just never claimed, so the game has to figure out what to do with that, right? But at the same point, how can they do anything? If I buy a plot of land, the whole concept of holding an NFT is that it's mine, right? Whatever I choose to do with it. If I buy an NFT from your game, that's my property. That's the whole idea of NFTs, right? I should be able to buy that NFT, and I should be able to, and I'm not arguing for this, I'm just arguing that this is the basis of buying NFTs. If I buy a plot of land and I do nothing with it, and it just sits there blank, and I'm waiting for, 10 years from now, because my bet is that 10 years from now, that plot of land set up is just sitting there, will be worth 10 times the investment, then that should be my right, But at the same time, all this land sitting there unused and unset up, is going to affect the rest of us that are actually trying to play the game actively, right? I think that they're walking this fine line of making the land game too expensive to play and shooting themselves in the foot. That's what I think. Because as we go along, when I first bought land, of course, all this wasn't made up yet. I didn't think it was going to be this deep. I didn't think there were going to be this many costs involved. So do with that what you will. There is also Immutable X that makes good games. Yes, I'm in Gods Unchained since beta. It's similar to Hearthstone. I used to play in Top Global. Yes, I've taken quite a few looks at Gods Unchained on YouTube primarily. I just have never gotten into playing it. Disney just sunk 1.5 billion into Epic Games. Oh, so Disney gets larger. You know, yeah, that's a whole side topic, right? So, yeah, just the mega conglomerate gets larger. So, Vilson, hey, you're in the house. Thanks for dropping by. Yo, am I late to the party? Yeah, almost an hour, 50 minutes. Thanks for dropping by, though. Summoners will be key with the new ranked system. Get your cheap chaos summoners now, not financial advice from Gathering. I agree. I agree. From a top-down global concept, I talked about this last night on the show, was that the fact that summoners, to me, people ask me all the time, what card should I buy, rent to play stuff? The basis of your play deck is your summoners. You need to get your summoners, a set of summoners to level appropriate. Whatever league you're going to play in, you need those appropriate maxed out summoners first thing. I think, mistake I've made in the past is buying single BCX of summoners because they were cheaper. I tell new players the best thing you can do money investment wise, I've found, is that when you first start playing or you're at a stage where you need to level up to the next level or something like that in League, try to play the market and find a good deal on the max level summoner for the league you want to play in. For instance, level 4 in silver, level 6 for rares in gold, etc., and go from there. And yes, from a bigger perspective, I've said this and I fully believe that the cheap chaos cards, once this burn event happens, are going to go away. Now, will they be as expensive as Rift Watchers or whatever else? Probably not. But the good deals on these gold foils and regular Chaos Legion are just going to go away because we've seen it in the past. I fully believe that especially the whales are going to see, especially with the gold foil Chaos Legion, how much value they're going to give to them in that particular contest, and they're going to get gobbled up and burn off, which is what Matt wants and ultimately feels is best for the game. I still feel that it's better for the game to have a certain amount of cards that are not extremely expensive so new players to the game can get good value. I don't necessarily know how I'd feel if I got into the game and I immediately had to plop down $500 or $1,000 to get into bronze, Anyway, okay. KGM says, you're right. Chaos Legion summoners are the best bang for the buck. They are also very good for the mana. Yeah, we've been talking about this since Chaos Legion got into the period of being overpopulated with cards. At the beginning, Chaos Legion, the value was very high, or the price was very high on them. But as time goes along and people started opening all these packs that they had gotten, and there was a glut of them on the market, then the price went down. I still feel that 85% of Chaos Legion are great play cards. And even the other 15% of the cards that I don't consider great still have their specific uses. So I think Chaos Legion is a great value, and it's fixing to go away. So like I said, this week I bought that plot of land, and I immediately went in and I bought 4 gold foil max level commons, which when staked out on land give you around 10,000 production points before bonuses. So I think with the bonuses, I stuck a common totem on there and I'm up around 11,000, something like that. So let's see here. Gathering says, plus keep playing every day to get your soulbound summoners for free. Yeah, I agree with that. We've proven time and time again, everybody's proven, especially it's one of Dwayne's main point, time and attention, right? You spend your time and you get your soulbound cards. At this point, I have most of my cards except for some most of the legendaries maxed out as far as to gold. And I'm retaining the excess copies for other purposes. So for instance, my main idea is if they ever open this up to let you use it on land, I might be able to use those excess copy of Soulbound cards on land, but we will see about that. Ike says, should have put in more TNGs to prevent that. Gathering says, I think we are being overly cautious with land. That is why costs seem high. If it hurts land usage too much, I think they will readjust costs lower. I'm hoping. And since they haven't set exact prices on what they're talking about in the 2.0 white papers, I'm hoping they do I hope that they're very thoughtful about it. Okay. I do know that obviously they don't want to shoot themselves in the foot, but at the same time, a lot of this I feel has been set up to boost the value of SPS and boost the value of DEC, logically, right? But I think at a certain point, it's too much and they end up hurting themselves instead of helping. So I'm sure they'll take a look at it, but whatever you want to say, the price of land, of actually working the land, it just keeps going up, okay? I'll give you an example, just right off the cuff. I know we only have 5 minutes left, but right off the cuff, I bought a common plot of land this week in my particular region, $80, okay? So 5 gold foil common Chaos Legions to stake on it that are max level, $12 a piece, $12.50 a piece. So that's $62.50 plus the $80 plus the like $45 for DEC to stake on it. So one plot of land, plus $20 for a totem, for a common totem. So I staked out one common plot of land this week, and it was about $207, right? Now, do you have to stake it out at that rate? No. Could you use cards that you already had? Yes. But I'm just saying, now on top of this, when 2.0 goes live, we've been talking about all the building costs and all the upkeep costs and everything. I think that it's just a very fine line. It's an edge they're walking, and hopefully that they test everything out and think it through. Obviously they can manipulate things if things are not doing well, and I'm just hoping for the best, right? I just want everybody to be prepared, and I don't want people to be surprised when it hits them, because there's a lot of people that don't read the white paper, right? So Norman says, on Gods Unchained, early player got like 3K on airdrop. Good old times. Web3 card games will be the future of trade and collection of rare items. Not necessarily card games, but I do agree on that point. Web3, I think, is the future of gaming, online and mobile. And once we can cross that mobile divide, I think it will be great for the intake of new people on the game, right? Whatever game you want to talk about, right? Gathering says, has Matt said when he is planning the burning event? As far as I know, he has not mentioned the timing on that. I think that he wants to get the details down pat before he does it. The last time I heard him talk about it, he still didn't. I'm sure he knows what he wants to do it, but I think he's still formulating exactly how he wants to do it, right? And get the best tie-ins to have the best effect, right? So we'll see on that. KGM says, hit the thumbs up, everyone. Yes, I would appreciate it. And if you haven't subscribed, I would also appreciate that. I'm trying to go over 500 subs this week. Would appreciate it. We're coming down to the last part of the hour, the bottom of the hour. If anybody has any other thing they want to say, go ahead and drop it in chat, and they can have the last word. But today I'm playing tons of games. I do need to get some more battles in. I think I'm going to play in this pre-release tournament there's nothing to lose except for time. It's pretty fun. The game itself reminds me of kind of like what's the one from Blizzard, the card game. It also reminds me of some of the older Magic the Gathering type card games as well, but it's a World War II setting, so I'm going to look into it. And I also need to get in my battles on World Warships. So I got a lot of things going on. I do appreciate everybody stopping by. We'll go ahead and drop it here, but everyone have a good week, and I hope everyone on your side is happy and healthy, and I will see you on the flip side.